It started with a click, not just a click that could have changed the future, but it didn't, because the company that made that click decided to ignore it. This is the story of Eastman Kodak Company, a company that once ruled photography like a king. A company so powerful it basically owned your memories. Birthdays, weddings, summer trips, all captured through their film. And yet, that same company, the one that literally invented digital photography, got completely wiped out by it. Let's rewind. It's 1975, it's inside Kodak's research lab in Rochester. A young engineer named Stephen Sasson is tinkering with wires, lenses, and cassette tape. He's about to finish something weird, something no one has ever seen before. It's clunky, it is slow, and it takes black and white photos at very small pixels. But this machine has one superpower. It doesn't need film. This was the first digital camera in the world. When Sasson showed it to Kodak executives, he expected applause, revolution, excitement. But what he got instead was silence. Long, heavy corporate silence. The men in suits didn't see innovation. They saw a threat. Because Kodak wasn't just a camera company, it was a film empire. At its peak, Kodak controlled 90% of the US film market. Their entire business model depended on selling film, paper, chemicals, and processing. And Sasson's invention, it made all of that obsolete. Imagine owning an oil company and someone on your team invents a free, clean energy source. That's how Kodak fell. So what did they do? They locked the technology away, they shelved it. They told the world nothing happened. But something had happened. They just turned their backs on the future. Why? Because of a trap that has destroyed countless companies throughout history. It's called the status quo bias. The idea that sticking to what works feels safer than changing. Kodak didn't want to cannibalize their golden goose. They were making billions from film. Why ruin a good thing? So they doubled down. More film factories, more paper, more chemicals. And while they were busy protecting their old kingdom, the outside world started moving. In the 1980s, digital imaging slowly gained traction. It was not perfect, but it was faster, cheaper, and easier. In the 1990s, companies like Canon, Sony, and Nikon began taking Kodak's own idea and running with it. And they were hungry. But Kodak was not worried. They were still huge. People still loved film. They believed their brand loyalty was too strong to fail. But technology doesn't care about loyalty, it only cares about better. And digital was better. So let's pause for a second, because here's the irony. Kodak actually saw this coming. They even conducted market studies. They knew digital was going to dominate photography one day, but they thought they had time. They thought their transition would be slow. They were wrong, very wrong. They shift. The shift didn't creep in gently, it exploded. Within a decade, the entire photography world turned upside down. Digital cameras got faster, smaller, cheaper, and eventually they got into phones. You know what's more convenient than going to a film lab? Pulling out your phone, tapping a button, and sharing the photo instantly. No waiting, no printing, no Kodak. And it's already 2000s. The empire starts to crack. Kodak finally tries to join the digital race, but here's the problem: they late. Competitors already own the battlefield. Kodak has that technology first, but now they playing catch up in the game they invented. They pour billions into digital cameras, but margins are thin. Competition is brutal, and they still depend on film to pay the bills. Their brand, once like a symbol of innovation, starts to look outdated. 2012, Kodak files for bankruptcy. A 120 years old giant gone. The company that gave the world Kodak moments couldn't save its own. But why? Because Kodak didn't lose to competitors. They lost to themselves, to their own fear, to their inability to let go of the past. So, in other words, they didn't change it. They didn't adapt it to the new digital age, and was like used to that old school mindset. They didn't want to sacrifice their short-term profits for long-term survival. They tried to protect their castle, but forgot to notice the walls were already burning. So let's break down the strategic failure here. First of all, it's about status quo bias. They believe what worked yesterday would work tomorrow. Second, fear of self-cannibalization. They didn't want to kill their own film business. 3. Misjudging time. They thought they had decades to adapt. 4. Blind loyalty to their brand power. They underestimated how fast customers change. And failure number 5, cost of inaction. By not deciding early, they let others make the future for them. This is what I call the Kodak trap. It happens when a company has a revolutionary idea but chooses to protect its old business model instead of adapting. History is full of like this kind of Kodak traps. Blockbuster LLC refusing to buy Netflix, Nokia Corporation laughing at smartphones, Yahoo turning down Google, and Kodak. They literally invented the thing that killed them. Here's a number that hurts. In 1996, Kodak was worth $28 billion. By 2012, it was worth less than $100 million. In less than 2 decades, they lost 99% of their value. And not because of some, genius competitor, but because of their own indecision. But here is where it gets even more brutal. Kodak didn't just invent the digital camera, they also invented one of the first sharing platforms in 2001. Think about that for a second. 4 years before Facebook, 9 years before Instagram, Kodak had the chance to dominate the entire social media plus photo ecosystem before anyone else. but they didn't believe people would want to share pictures online. They thought film was still king. That single missed opportunity cost them billions more. So, you can ask, what is the lesson here? It's not just about cameras, it's about power, about how comfort kills innovation. If you're leading a company or even just your own life, the moment you get too comfortable with how things are is the moment the world starts moving without you. Apple understood this. That's why they constantly kill their own products to make room for better ones. Amazon.com understood this. That's why they went from books to literally everything. But Kodak didn't. They played defense when they should have attacked. And final insight. The biggest threat to success isn't failure. It's success itself. When you're on top, you want to protect the crown, but the future doesn't care about your crown. If you don't disrupt yourself, someone else will. And they will do it faster than you think. Imagine for a moment, what if Kodak had embraced digital from the start? They could have launched the world's first digital camera empire. They could have built Instagram before Instagram existed. They could have owned the entire, storytelling of 21st century, but they didn't. And that's why the only Kodak moments left in history books. So the next time you're faced with a decision to protect what you have or to build what comes next, remember this story. The story of a $1 digital photo that killed $1 billion empire. And not because it was too weak, but because the people in charge didn't have the courage to press go. And always remember, power isn't knowing the future. Power is in being brave enough to build it, even when it kills your past. Thank you for listening. If you liked this, smash the like button, subscribe button. See you next time.